Joining Dr. Ajay Kumar, who stays on, is Professor Anand Kumar of the India Against Corruption Party, and Meenakshi Lekhi of the BJP is also with us. Meenakshi, you know, this whole self-righteous outrage attempt by the BJP, we are all outraged that anyone could ask questions about Nitin Gadkari. Our own internal person has given an internal clean chit, and we believe that the internal clean chit is the most transparent process. We're all very angry and upset, etc., etc. Media has got it all wrong. All this has happened, and frankly, it has fallen flat. Why is the BJP continuing to try and defend the indefensible?
I'm sorry, the first thing when you say it is indefensible, it is incorrect. And if wrong perceptions are created about somebody by mal-campaign, the person and the party have every right and responsibility, not just right, but responsibility to fight with that perception. And we have seen how perceptions were created about Gujarat. In spite of the fact 84 riots, many more people had died, all the riots have happened in every Congress-run government, yet you continue to target BJP on wrong facts, incorrect so then I am within my right to correct that perception and fight you on facts and figures.
You know, this question actually is very interesting because Meenakshi Lekhi, it's a bigger issue than this. Nobody's interested in targeting an individual or a party. Nitin Gadkari is hardly the leader of massive consequence that anyone should be interested in that. The question here is that it was the RSS's Ram Madhav who, after the BJP defeat in 2004, had acknowledged that politics is all about perception. And he said BJP's defeat in Lok Sabha elections is because there was a perception about a dilution in its ideology. Even this chartered accountant who was given an internal clean chit has said perception matters, and you cannot have a businessman heading a political party. That's what I meant. Perception has been at the root of every BJP argument over the last decade and a half.
I agree with you to the extent,
yes,
that it's a battle of perception. But you have to give me the fair chance, yes, to correct the perception.
Right.
If the correct fact is that one has investigated only till 2009 and 10, and money in fact belongs to Mehta Group of companies, and there has been no money laundering. It was restructuring of the companies for the simple reason that loan was to be procured. A company which is worth 2,000 crores or a businessman worth 2,000 crore has got entangled into 164 crore, would not want to be known to the world as a debtor. So within the law, within the secretarial practices, you generate, and those companies are owned by him in 2003 and 4.
Lekhi, you see, now, this is where the BJP is getting itself entangled.
An incorrect perception.
No, this is where the BJP is getting entangled.
You need to correct the perception in that case.
This is where you're getting entangled. This is where you're getting entangled. And I'd remind you that in September 2008, Kapil Sibal had said that governments cannot be run on public perception.
And so on and so forth. And coal scam. Just to divert that attention, a wrong thing is fed to the media, and the focus is shifted to Nitin Gadkari on a person who only owns a lakh of rupees worth of shares.
Right.
And you say
you know, the whole thing is, no, there are, I mean, you are entirely,
Meenakshi, it is a battle of perception,
you are entirely
within our rights to fight against that perception, which is incorrectly created.
Meenakshi Lekhi, you are entirely entitled to believe that. If you do believe that, and if you are not just saying so because, you know, you want to stick to the party line till the very last, but you actually believe that it's all, you know, it's perception problem, a driver, an astrologer, other people become shareholders and directors, that is also normal, it happens, it can be explained by some convoluted financial logic, and what appears out here about financial companies which have no basis, no office, no existence can also be washed away. You know, I'm not getting into those details. The question tonight is this, that so far the BJP's argument was perception, wasn't it? Ajay Kumar wants to come in. The BJP had always cornered the UPA on perception. Now that becomes your actually zeal. Perception becomes your actually zeal. Yes.
Arnab,
let's hear the other side.
To cut button.
Let Ajay Kumar come in.
It is about perception.
Hear him.
The gentleman who's portrayed as a driver is in fact not a driver, used to run his private taxi, got an employment. There are nominee directors All those things are part of secretarial practices. And why go after Gadkari? There are n number of companies. I mean, go after Reliance, go after Tata, go after Vadra. Which one chooses to
so
gloss
now
over?
the, no, but you can't.
And you need to change directors every 3 years.
That's where again,
now, a secretarial practice has been made into a corrupt practice.
The moment you get into finger pointing,
a liftman.
This was exactly the argument of the UPA government. Allow me,
is a director in 18 companies.
Meenakshi Lekhi, Meenakshi, you see, that's what the problem. Every time the questions the BJP asked the government 2 years back, pull the tape back, rewind your own tape.
Government is inquiring.
You will hear yourself asking these questions that I am asking you today to the UPA. And every time at that time you said propriety, perception matters. You've lost the perception battle. It's all right. Let's hear the other side. Ajay Kumar.
Arnab, you know, first of all, Meenakshi is making a spirited defense, but issues the BJP has got a huge perception for a couple of things. Look at Bellari brothers. Look at Kushwa. Look at, you know, and even in the coal scam, if you do a deep dive on coal scam, a lot of BJP chief ministers, my state of Jharkhand. So one sec. So from a perception perspective, they have always overlooked, and they've been, you know, very, very smart on double speak. And today, when your people are raising questions, they suddenly feel offended because they're actually trying to defend the indefensible. However, if Meenakshi keeps saying that they're not drivers, they're not what you call
ex-drivers. She's saying they're ex-drivers.
Bakers, etc.
No, she's saying they were drivers.
No, the question is, you know, I would rather, you know, everybody wants to become Nitin Gadkari's driver, you see. Hey, come on, Meenakshi, I would like to be a taxi operator for Nitin Gadkari if this is the way he's going to deal with people.
You see, perception, if perception did not matter,
and Mr. Gadkari does not own the company.
Problem is, Meenakshi, one second.
Farmers own the capital, 11% capital comes from the farmers, rest comes from Mehta group of companies.
Now the question here is
Mr. Gadkari only holds it.
The question here is
one second, Meenakshi, the simple question.
The question.
Meenakshi,
yes.
Meenakshi,
Ajay.
The company had a lot of shareholders who never knew they were shareholders. They never knew they were directors of the company. They had no idea. Now, that's a given fact.
A lot of disturbance.
Now, how did that happen? I'm saying a lot of guys in the company are shareholders who never knew they were shareholders. How does that happen?
How does this impact the India Against Corruption Party?
More than 10,000 people are the farmers who are shareholders. Total number of shareholders is 15,000.
Right. Meenakshi.
Mr. Gadkari only holds the share worth 1 lakh of rupees.
Meenakshi, after the defeat in the 2009 Lok Sabha elections, L.K. Advani accepted the public perception that the BJP was not a united house, disillusioned its supporters and workers, that was the reason behind the party's disappointing result. You acknowledge that. Today, everybody is asking, you can present a lawyer's argument, somebody presents a chartered accountant's argument, but the fact of the matter is the biggest opposition party of this country willing to pay with a similar perception price by, not acting or behaving like a bulwark against Mr. Gadkari? And when the person who says I have given a clean sheet on Purti affairs, when the person who's given a clean sheet on Purti affairs, no, 1 minute. And when that person says you can't have a businessman as your party chief, then you are tying yourself up in knots. Let's get Professor Anand Kumar in. Professor Anand Kumar.
Become businessmen.
Professor Anand Kumar.
National Herald and back
Don't divert
firms. Miss Vadra happens to be a director in Mr. Vadra's firm till 2010.
Precisely, but
all the transactions are from 2006
but Meenakshi, may I bring to your kind notice, Meenakshi Lekhi,
honestly, not to get into politics, number one. Number two,
Meenakshi Lekhi, 1 minute.
Entire inquiry against Mr. Vadra is being conducted by a hostile
Can you hear me, Meenakshi?
He is open to that. He has opened his cards and he says, okay, please come and inquire into the transactions. Please come and inquire into my businesses. Income
hear
tax
me,
inquiries
Meenakshi?
there, serious fraud inquiries there. At the same
Meenakshi,
time,
can you hear me?
these inquiries which should have been conducted against Mr. Vadra, Miss Vadra,
Yes.
Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Miss Sonia Gandhi, there is no statement.
Yes.
There is no statement on coal. There is no statement on 2G. There is no statement on CWG, and we continue to fight a battle of perceptions.
Meenakshi Lekhi, I'll tell you something. Meenakshi, can you hear me? First of all,
incorrectly and
can you hear me? No, but can you hear me?
That is incorrect.
Can you hear me,
We have
Meenakshi?
every business. And again, it's not for others to decide who the president of the party is going to be. Party will take that call when party wants to take a call.
Absolutely.
And definitely not under media pressure.
Now, Meenakshi, I'll just make one limited point to you. I don't know if you can hear me. If you can, then I'll tell you two things. CWG, which
your voice is breaking. I can't hear very well.
Thank you. I'll speak a little clearer. Meenakshi, the Commonwealth Games scam which the BJP likes to take authorship of, I don't want to take any authorship, but everyone in India knows it was broken on Times Now. Adarsh, Kargil for Profit, Devas, ISRO, 2G were all broken on news channels, including the channel which you are on. So don't take authorship for it. Vadra Gate was followed up on Times Now. It was not exposed by the BJP. The problems that Mr. Ashok Khemka faced and the documents related to Khemka and the Vadra case were also put out on Times Now and other news channels and the rest of the media. It was not an expose of the BJP. So please don't give me that logic. At least on this channel, you can't give that logic because these issues are dealt with. However, that does not mean that you will not be asked the questions. You see, Meenakshi, it does not mean that you can choose to be on one side, but when the question is asked to you, you turn around and you say, no, we won't talk about these issues.
If you label a few companies as money laundering firms, I am going to respond that these companies were not
if you carefully choose,
but existed way beyond 2003 and 2004 and were owned by Mr. Mehta Group of companies. And the money which is being considered as money laundering, as laundered money, is actually a capital of Mr.
This is a wonderful situation.
And nobody under Income Tax
this is a wonderful situation.
Law of the country can find fault with that.
Meenakshi Lekhi, see, you'll tie yourself up in knots, I'm telling you.
A campaign is going to be run against Mr. Gadkari. We have every business to
Meenakshi, I'll tell you what, you'll tie yourself up in knots because what happened in the CWG scam was this. Everybody knows. We sent a team to London, we found out a problem. Mr. Kalmadi overreacted and ended up, the whole beans were spilled, as it were. Now the simple question in this particular case is one second, Meenakshi, please. So there are some people who nowadays find it fashionable. There are some people. I am not saying it is you.
But my question is very simple.
Meenakshi, there are some people today. There are some people today. I am not saying it's you. There are some people today when the dice is rolled against them, fashionably try to say, oh, journalism is bad, it's all sensationalism, people don't know the facts,
no, I'm not
they don't know how to
that.
investigate. There are some people. I'm not saying you, there are some people.
At the same time, if certain questions are going to be raised, I am going to answer them with facts and figures.
I didn't say you,
If you're going to inquire up to 2007, 8, 9, I am going to tell you that the root of this money, it goes back to 2003 and
wonderful.
4.
Now my question to Professor Anand Kumar of India Against Corruption is this. Can any party, not just the BJP, afford to be in denial about the perception impact that, say, the BJP faces at this point? Can any political party choose today to be indifferent on perception?
No, Arnavji, as you saw, a very outstanding lawyer like Meenakshi has to spend so much of energy and time with someone who is a non-partisan person like you or Ajayji. What will be their fate in 2000 in the public forums when there will be an open challenge on the question of corruption? Because this genie is out of the bottle. The challenge of corruption-free India is going to be a major issue in the elections of 2014. BJP was a party with a difference, but unfortunately they are stuck in a situation with a president who has received maximum negative publicity in last 6 to 10 weeks, and they have to decide whether they want to hang on to Shri Gadkari's problem and make it BJP's problem, or want to take a bit of a break as Advaniji took and came out after Hawala inquiry with a better light. So I think that public perception is very clear. Now Shri Gadkari is occupying seat next to Shri Robert Vadra. The only difference is Shri Vadra has no direct political responsibility to any party, Shri Gadkari happens to be the first member of the party which can offer a national alternative to present UPA.
I allow a 1 minute rebut on both sides. A 1 minute rebut, because Meenakshi, make a brief rebut and then I will allow the professor to respond back to you. But make a brief rebut, please, I request you.
Okay, yes, very brief. Mr. Gadkari's case is very different from Mr. Vadra. Please don't compare the two incomparables. Against Mr. Vadra, there has been no inquiry either by the Serious Offences Wing of the Corporate Affairs Ministry or by Income Tax Department. Against Mr. Gadkari, there are two inquiries pending, and both inquiries are done by the ministries run by hostile
No, but what was the inquiry against Shashi Tharoor? One counter question. Counter question from me, Meenakshi.
And Mr. Vadra is no private individual. I do not understand the equation between ISC and Congress when they speak this language, because Mr. Vadra happens to be son-in-law of a very powerful woman, and Ms. Priyanka Gandhi happens to be a director in those companies till 2010. All transactions are between 2007 and 2010 when Ms. Priyanka Gandhi was the director. Against Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Ms. Sonia Gandhi, there are further inquiries so far as Harold case is concerned. Back office, that firm is concerned. There are various transactions.
Ms. Lekhi, I have a question, Ms. Lekhi.
But nobody is looking at.
I have a question for you, Ms. Lekhi.
Against Mr. Gadkari, against Mr.
Ms. Lekhi, I'm running short of time. I must ask you a question.
Already conducting inquiry, and much has been made about nothing.
Ms. Lekhi, I want to ask you a question.
What happened into Mehta groups of companies? How and where the money came from, what happened, it's all a question of record.
Ms. Lekhi,
now, based on these facts, if you are going to give a clean chit to Mr. Vadra,
Ms. Lekhi, are you listening to me?
Mr. Vadra, but choose to discuss Mr.
Ms. Lekhi, will you listen to me? Ms. Lekhi, no channel no channel has done as detailed investigation and discussion on Vadra as we have. By the way, so you know that's a bit of a non-starter. I just want to tell you and everyone that who's trying to say, well, let's discuss Vadra. It's a bit of a non-starter. Our viewers know that, but that's not the point. My question to you, I have a question for you. Take my question. Take my question. My question is this. My question is this to you.
Does not even get checked
on the
airports.
Take the question. Take the question. The question is, Meenakshi Lekhi, give me a short answer, and then I'll allow the professor a rebut, and then I'll move on. Ms. Lekhi, 18th of April 2010, I hope you can hear me. Meenakshi Lekhi. Meenakshi Lekhi, 18th of April 2010. 18th of April 2010, can you please inform me, Professor, and all our viewers, what was the inquiry which was going on in the case of Shashi Tharoor? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, ma'am?
Can't hear.
Can you hear me? Well, I'll get a rebut from Professor. My only limited point is I don't know if there was any inquiry on in the case of Shashi Tharoor when he resigned from his position as Minister of State in the MEA on 18th April 2010. In fact, when he resigned, he said, I called for a full inquiry into the matter. Then he was reinstated in October 2012. Questions were asked. So that argument of Meenakshi Lekhi does not hold there because there was no inquiry in that particular case. Professor Anand Kumar, your response to Meenakshi Lekhi, please. You have a right to respond. You have 1 minute to respond. 1 minute to respond to Meenakshi Lekhi. Professor Anand Kumar is responding to you. Please give him time, ma'am. Yes.
No, I think our expectation is that BJP will come out of this Yadurappa syndrome and will decide fairly soon. Otherwise, they'll have many more Ram Jethmalani speaking louder than India Against Corruption or Arnab Goswami or Ajay Kumar or people of India. So better watch out. Your house is on fire.
Okay, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for joining me on that debate. We're taking a small break. And when we come out on the other side...
India Against Corruption should also fight the battle of perception so far as Mr. Kejriwal and Prashant Bhushan are concerned. So Mr. Anand, Professor Anand should restrain himself by speaking against BJP and comparing Nitin Gadkari with Vadra.
Well, I thought
they are two different cases.
I have one quote. I have one small quote in which L.K. Advani was quoted as saying February 2010. And how I love quotes, because quotations are wonderful in politics. It takes us back to our contemporary recent history. L.K. Advani was quoted as saying in February 2010, Nitin Gadkari is absolutely right in saying that individual ambitions must always be subservient to party goals and decisions. Let's see how history follows up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that debate. On the other side, can anyone make an
agree
allegation
with this.
in a case of match fixing when there's not enough fact to back it? Back on the other side.